It is impossible because at that point there was no matter, no energy. So you cannot have a nervous system, which means you cannot have relative awareness. That clearly proves that God himself is not relative awareness, and his instruments of getting the knowledge also cannot be the relative awareness. So then how could he have the awareness of the design of the world existing in him? He created the world, which means he must have had the knowledge of the design of creation before that. So it is said, Ghatasya Karta Ghatajnaha, Patasya Karta Patajnaha. The producer of any object, he should have the knowledge of that object, whatever he is going to produce beforehand. No? So God had the entire knowledge of the world before creating it. That is why we call God omniscient, and he is omnipotent because he created the whole world. So if when God is not the relative awareness, and his instruments are also not the relative awareness, we clearly see that there is a difference between the soul and God. So before creation, the relative awareness, along with its causal background, along with its causes, which are inert energy and matter, were absent. So naturally, God, the subject, and his instruments to get the knowledge cannot be this this relative awareness. When God, the subject, is unimaginable, his instruments of knowledge, being similar to the subject, must also be unimaginable. You look at the case of the soul. The soul is awareness, so its instruments should also be of the same material, right? If the subject, the knower, when I am looking at the pot, I am the subject. I'm made out of, that subject is made out of awareness. The instruments that I use to see the pot also should be made out of the same material, so they should also be awareness. So using that same logic, if God was able to know without the presence of awareness, which means that he is unimaginable, then his instruments of getting that knowledge should also not be awareness, but they should also be unimaginable, because the subject and the instrument should be of the same nature. So God's nature is unimaginable, so his instrument's nature should also be unimaginable. Hence, we shall say that the unimaginable God is aware with the help of his unimaginable power. In fact, I want to completely eliminate the word awareness in the context of God. This is a very important thing. Okay, please, I will read it again. Swamiji is saying, in fact, I want to completely eliminate the word awareness in the context of God. This is because the word awareness always brings to the mind the idea of a created relative awareness, which is dependent on matter and energy. When I say that God is aware of this spot, here the word aware simply means that he has knowledge of this spot. In such knowledge, there is no place for the word awareness. Using the word awareness would mean that the subject, who must be the relative awareness, obtained the knowledge of the pot with the help of internal instruments, which too must be relative awareness. So that is clearly not the case in God. So we cannot use the word awareness for God. Okay. If at all the word awareness is used in the context of God, it is only in a namesake manner, not really with the meaning of relative awareness. We cannot use that word awareness for God. That is why in many places Swamiji has used a terminology called unimaginable awareness, so that we don't fall into the error of thinking that God's awareness is also somewhat like our awareness. So far we have differentiated between God and the soul as far as the subject is concerned, pramata is concerned. Now we are going to see how God differs from the soul from the standpoint of the fruit, which is prama. Okay. Now I am proceeding, Swamiji is saying, now I am proceeding to prove. Can somebody mute their mic, please? Thank you. Okay. So now I am proceeding to prove that this relative awareness or the soul is not God, with the help of the analysis of the final fruit, which is the knowledge obtained. The four components, the fourth component is the result. The ultimate result of the process of knowing is the knowledge that you obtain. That is called prama. So based on that prama, we are going to try to differentiate between God and the soul. Swamiji is saying, you, the relative awareness as the subject, with the help of the four modes of relative awareness, which become the four internal instruments, can only get limited knowledge. So when a soul, who is relative awareness, the basic relative awareness, becomes the subject and is trying to know something, trying to get some knowledge, he is going to use instruments which are also awareness. They are the same relative awareness. So using this mechanism of the relative awareness being the subject and relative awareness itself in its four modes being the instruments, this can only yield limited knowledge. This means that the relative awareness can only get limited knowledge with the help of the relative awareness itself acting as internal instruments. But if the knowledge to be obtained is the knowledge of the entire world, the relative awareness as the subject cannot hold such enormous amount of knowledge. The brain of the person producing that relative awareness will just blow up and the person will go mad. But God, who is omniscient, holds the entire knowledge of the entire creation. How is this possible? It is because in God's case, neither the subject nor the internal instruments are the relative awareness. So the limitations of the relative awareness do not constrain him. God, the subject, is unimaginable, and he obtains his omniscient knowledge using his unimaginable, omnipotent power as the instrument. So do you find even an iota of similarity between the relatively real soul and the absolutely real, unimaginable God? You will agree that in proving that this relatively real soul is not the absolutely real God, I have not crossed the boundaries of awareness and the process of knowing. When the head of a petty rat can be easily cut with a small knife, is it necessary to use the divine Nandaka sword of God Vishnu for that purpose? The discussion about the three unimaginable powers of the unimaginable God, which are the powers to create, maintain, and destroy this entire world, is not at all necessary to prove that the soul is not God. The above analysis is more than sufficient, and it does not require any external help. There is another difference between God and the soul. In the case of the soul, though the subject and the instrument are the same awareness, there is a slight difference between the subject and the instrument. The subject can be treated to be a concentrated spot of awareness, while the instruments of knowing, which are the antakaranas, are modes of diluted awareness. Swamiji gave the example of the lamp, which is the concentrated awareness, which represents the concentrated awareness, and the light emanating from that lamp is like the diluted awareness. So the modes of that awareness are like that diffuse light around it. So that is the case in the soul, okay, in the case of the soul. However, in the case of God, there is not even the slightest difference between the subject and the instrument, since both are unimaginable. In the case of the soul, although the subject and the instruments are both made out of awareness, there is some difference between them. But in the case of the unimaginable God, the subject and the instrument are both unimaginable. One cannot say that there are two or more unimaginable entities, because if one is able to distinguish between two unimaginable entities, they are not unimaginable at all. So the unimaginable entity must always be one. Any number of unimaginable items finally become only one unimaginable item. As per worldly logic, if there is any item that is aware of itself or of another item, that item must be this relative awareness. But when the unimaginable God is aware of himself or of the entire world, we cannot conclude that he too must be this relative awareness. This is because we cannot apply worldly logic to God. The Veda clearly says that God is beyond worldly logic. There are so many quotations, atarkyaha, namedhaya, yo buddhe paratastu saha, and so on. So now another point Swamiji is making is that the entire Advaita analysis is limited only to the relative reality. So Swamiji is saying all the logical feats of the Advaita philosophers are tremendous and are highly appreciable. But all these feats are limited only to the boundary of the relative reality, which is called the Vyavahara Satta. My point is only this much. I appreciate all your logical high jumps and long jumps. But I say that you have done okay, but I say that you have done all of them while only remaining on the ground. You could not reach the treasure hidden under the ground. This unattained treasure is the unimaginable absolute reality called the Paramartha Satta. This unimaginable absolute reality was introduced by Shankara himself. In fact, it was Shankara who introduced the concept that the absolute God has an unimaginable nature. He said that the unimaginability of the absolute God could only be indicated through silence. He referred to that absolute unimaginable God as Parabrahman. It is not relatively real awareness. The Parabrahman is not the relatively real awareness which you call Brahman. Shankara also clearly declared this concept that the absolute God is unimaginable in the Shivananda Lahari by saying, O God, neither you nor anything related to you is known to us. Viditam kim nama shambho tava. The word awareness refers to the relative awareness, which is an imaginable item of this imaginable world. Everybody understands what is inert and what is non-inert. That which is non-inert is awareness, which includes living animals and humans. Silence means the absence of any word, since every word must stand for some imaginable item of the word as its meaning. So when Shankaracharya says that Parabrahman Parabrahman is the ultimate unimaginable God, can only be expressed through silence, he means that since every word can only represent an imaginable item as its meaning, Parabrahman is not an imaginable item. So no word can, in a justifiable way, no word can stand for Parabrahman. So you have to be silent, basically. So Swamiji is now referring again to the Advaita philosopher, saying that you have crossed all the 5 sheaths, which are known as the Panchakoshas, and all the 4 internal instruments, which are the Antakaranams, with your beautiful logical analysis. The Advaita analysis actually dwells quite a bit on the on proving that God is the soul. Basically, the soul is beyond the 5 sheaths, Panchakoshatitaha. That which is beyond the 5 sheaths is defined as the Atman. And similarly, the 4 Antakaranas also. So Swamiji is congratulating them for that good analysis. It is highly appreciable that you have crossed even the most subtle internal instrument called Ahankara, which is the basic ego or the I thought. You have shown how it is also how that I thought or ego is also an object of the awareness. So the awareness is the ultimate subject, and that the I thought also becomes a subordinate to it as an object of that awareness. While giving you the highest certificate of appreciation for your sharp analysis, I just have one simple comment to make. All your logical feats were only performed on the stage of the auditorium of relative reality, and that you could not touch the absolute unimaginable reality. So next, Swamiji is going to prove that God differs from the soul from the standpoint of the object. So far we have proved that God differs from the soul from the standpoint of the pramata or the subject, as well as from the final result, which is the prama, knowledge. Okay. Now we are going to see how God differs from the standpoint of the object, which is the prameya. Swamiji continues, you caught one very simple commonality between God and the soul, which is that God is aware of something and the soul is also aware of something. But you missed that this something, which is the object, prameya, of knowledge, also greatly differs in both cases. In the case of God, the object about which God possesses complete knowledge, which is the knowledge being called prama, is this whole universe. The object in the case of God is the whole universe. God knows the whole universe. He is omniscient. In the case of the soul, the object is only a tiny part of the universe, and its knowledge and the soul's knowledge about the tiny item is also very little. Of any small item, even if you take the smallest item, which is an atom, our knowledge of that atom is also very, very small. We don't have the entire knowledge even of a single atom. Okay, whereas in the case of God, he knows the entire creation to the highest level, in its entirety. He knows the entire creation in its entirety. So thus there is a vast difference in the result, which is the knowledge called prama, possessed by God and the soul. Hence, God is said to be sarvajna or omniscient, which means that he is the possessor of the knowledge of all creation, whereas the soul is said to be alpajna, which means it is the possessor of very little knowledge. So the prama is also different, the prameya is also different. The whole world is not our object of knowing, because we don't know we have not seen the boundaries of the universe, right? So if we have not seen the boundaries of the universe, how can we say that the whole universe is the object of my knowledge? It is not the object of my knowledge, whereas in the case of God, it is. So the prameya is also different. At the level of prameya, there is difference between God and the soul. At the level of prama, also prama, which is knowledge, there is difference between God and the soul. Now the next point is, God differs from the soul from the point of view of the instruments also, pramanam. Okay. Now there is a lot of difference between the instruments or pramanam used by God and the soul, which supports the fact that God and the soul are different. You can cut a tree with an axe, but not with the edge of a lotus petal. The difference between the instruments of knowledge used by God and the soul is exactly like the difference between the two subjects. Because the subject, pramata, is in the case of the soul is awareness, and in the case of God, it is an unimaginable nature. So there's total difference in the at the level of pramata. The same difference exists at the level of instrument also, because the pramata and the pramanam, the subject and the instruments, they share the same nature. So this is because there is a similarity of nature between the subject and the instrument. A man can cut a tree with an axe, whereas Indra could cut a hill with his divine diamond weapon called the Vajra. The imaginable awareness is not only relatively real, but is also far weaker than the imaginable inert energy. A man can cut a tree with the inert energy present in his body in the form of muscle power, with an appropriate instrument, of course, like an axe. But he cannot cut the tree using his mere awareness energy. In other words, he cannot cut the tree with his mere thought, even if an axe is available nearby. Thus, even within the boundaries of the imaginable relative reality, awareness is far, far weaker than inert energy. This inert energy might well be the king within the kingdom of the relative reality, but it is nothing compared to the unimaginable God and his unimaginable power. The subject and the instrument of knowledge are of the same nature. In the case of God, the subject is unimaginable, and his instrument of knowing, which is his unimaginable power, is also unimaginable. In the case of the soul, both the subject and its instrument of knowing are awareness. Hence, there is an unimaginable difference between God and soul in all the four components of the process of knowing. The subject or pramata in the case of God is unimaginable, while it is the imaginable awareness in the case of the soul. Second, the internal instrument or pramanam of God is unimaginable, while the internal instrument of the soul is the imaginable awareness again. Third, the object, which is the prameyam, which is known by God, is the infinite universe, whereas in the object for a soul can only be a finite and small number of items in the universe. The fourth component, which is the result of the process of knowing or the knowledge obtained, known as prama, in that case also, God, the prama for God is his omniscient knowledge, omniscience. His knowledge is the entire knowledge. Whatever can be known is known to God. The knowledge by the soul is only a small amount of knowledge. It is the alpa jnana. So at the level of pramata, prameya, pramanam, and the prama, in all the four components, we find that there is utter difference between God and the soul. There is absolutely nothing common. Just because the soul is able to know something and God also is able to know something, therefore the soul cannot be God. So that we will perhaps stop over here. But this is a very, very beautiful and excellent explanation given by Swamiji. And as Swamiji said, without using the Sudarshan Chakra, he has cut the head of the rat. So excellent thing. And when this gets circulated, I hope everybody will enjoy reading this.
Yes, sir, definitely, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Sir, Anil Garu has asked one question in relation to this discourse. Shall I read that?
Yes. Swamiji is here. Yes. You can ask.
Swami, anyway, Swami, hello, Swami.
Hello?
Swami, shall I read that question? Anil Garu has asked one question in relation to this discourse which is read just now. Shall I read that?
Yes, you can read.
So Anil Garu is asking this question. Will God use internal instrument of the medium when he incarnates? That is his question in relation to this discourse.
Okay.
Should I send this in the document after this satsang, or you will answer it now, Swami?
You said I will answer it.
Okay. Okay, Swami. I will record and send. And Swami, I will read other questions. Few other devotees has some questions. This question is from Tinku Garu. The question is as follows. O Lord Datta, could you please explain how below people followed pravritti life in worldly life with family members and society? Number 1, Lakshmana. Number 2, Bharatudu. Number 3, Shatrughnudu. 4, Sharavana Kumara. 5, King Janaka. This is the question from Tinku Garu. The second question is from Trailokya Garu. The question is as below. Pada Namaskaram Swami. In Pravritti, it is our dharma to not hurt our parents and make them happy. But I realized that their expectations never end, and some ignorant parents try to achieve their goals through their children. Even kids take a lot of stress to fulfill their dreams, thinking that parents alone have true love for them. Is it our dharma to fulfill our parents' expectations, or is it enough to take care of their worldly needs and spiritual needs? That is the question from Trailokya Garu. The next question includes some Sanskrit slokas, so I request Prasad Garu to read that question if he is there. Prasad Garu?
Yes, Bharat.
Yes, thanks. Yes, please.
Sashtanga Pranama Swami. Virabhadra Garu has asked 3 questions. The first question is about a seemingly contradiction between the statement of Shankara and also another shloka quoted by Swami Vivekananda. The question is something like this. In one context, Shankaracharya said that Aham Brahmasmi, and his Sishyas repeated it. What he means to opine is this is something theoretically done, and there is no problem at all because there is no karma involved in that, because the jnanam is not brought into practice. That at a very superficial level. So Shankara drank the molten lead, and subsequently the Sishyas could not drink the molten lead. And then we know the recently Swamiji has given a beautiful answer to one of the questions. Shiva Kevaloham. All of us have listened that answer recently, maybe a couple of weeks back. So, in this context, he is trying to relate the Gita shloka at 11th chapter, 16th shloka, Aneka Vahudara Vaktranetram, Pashyami Tvam Sarvato Anantarupam, Nantam Namadhyam Na Panastadadim, Pashyami Vishweshwar Vishwarupa. This is where Arjuna is describing his plight, how he is in fact visualizing the cosmic form of the God. So, with reference to the Shiva Kevaloham and Bhagavad Gita shloka, what Swami Vivekananda said is the context is something like this. One of his disciples is weeping due to some reason. To console him, Swami Vivekananda recited this shloka, Kin nama rodishi sakhe tvai sarvashaktihi amantrayasva bhagavan bhagadam swarupam त्रैलोक्यमेत दिखिलं तव पादमूले आत्मैव हि प्रभवते न जडः कदाचित्. Probably this is taken from the Vasishta Gita. The meaning for the benefit of others, I can just add some meaning to this shloka. What makes you weep, my friend? In you is all power. Summon up your all-powerful nature, O mighty one, and this whole universe will lie at your feet. With regard to this meaning, what Bhadraji is asking is, here he said that all are incarnations, because Swami Vivekananda is equating the disabled on par with his own nature. So, but maybe with ignorance, probably he is trying to point to that two aspects of Avana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. So, question is, if optimism is only to Vivekananda, why did he told this to Sishya? Because all three words are lying at your feet. There is a difference between these two. What is the reason in context to the quotation given by Shankara that Shiva Kevalam or Aham Brahmasmi? And question number 2, this is taken from probably from Vasishta Ramayana. Jnata Jnanam Tatha Jyayam Drashta Drishana Drishya Bhuhu Karta Hetu Kriya Yasmat Tasmai Nyasyatmane Namaha. So, from this shloka, what he expects is, what is the total meaning of this shloka? What is the jnata, what is the jnanam, what is the jnayam, and so on. He wanted a comprehensive meaning of this particular shloka, because just now Nikhilji has mentioned about that pramata, pramana, primiti, primeyam and all. In relation to that, there is a very good discussion here. And the question 3 is something like, if I have a guru and I am not here, probably I passed away, only later Guru has arrived this world in an incarnation. Will he support me? Because the Sadguru will take care of his disciples. Or I am here, but I did not find my Sadguru here. Wherever he is, would he supports me because I am here? So that is precisely his third question is. These are the 3 questions from Bhadra Garu. Bharat, you may please proceed. Thank you. Namaskaram, sir.
Thank you, Prasad Garu. Swami, I will record all these questions and I will send to you.
Yes.
Okay. So now, shall we go to Mahima Yamuna Swami?
Yes.
Okay. Is Ajay Garu there?
Swamiji, today Ajay Garu is probably traveling.
Okay. Then we will go to
Hello, Swami, I am prepared. Swami, I am prepared with the document Mahima Yamuna, from where we are supposed to read. If you want me to read, I will read Mahima Yamuna.
you can read. You can read.
Shall I read? Okay,
Yes.
Swami. So today's Mahima Yamuna, we are continuing from this title, Vishnu Lahari, 18th Mahima. The title is Curing the Illness Through Knowledge. A scholar was preaching Ashtavakra Samhita in a temple. It is a book of spiritual knowledge which was preached to King Janaka by sage Ashtavakra. The scholar stopped his preaching since he was stuck at a verse, the translated meaning of which was horrible. The scholar himself was unable to understand its sense since its meaning created almost very strong heart attack. The meaning of that verse is that the mother in this birth who grew her son is born as the wife of her son in the next birth. The scholar thought that if he preaches this verse, the public will throw their chappals on him. The scholar consulted several other great scholars also for the interpretation of this verse. Some were also shocked, and some suggested the scholar to skip off that verse and proceed further in that book. The scholar was not convinced, fell ill due to mental tension and anxiety for the correct meaning, unable to take food properly, and was stuck to the cot like a skeleton for about 6 months. Some devotees took Swami to the residence of the scholar. The scholar told Swami, people are telling that you are the incarnation of Dattatreya. If so, you can certainly reveal the correct meaning of this verse. Then only I will permanently recover from my illness. Even if you cure my illness by using your miraculous power, I will shortly fall ill again due to my tension about the verse. Meanwhile, his family members brought plates of tiffin and coffee for Swami, devotees, and for the scholar, who refused to take both. Swami told, please take the tiffin and coffee along with us, and I am sure that Sri Dattatreya will reveal the correct meaning to you since you have given so much value for the knowledge. If you have faith in me, first you take these both. The scholar accepted and took both along with Swami. Then Swami started giving the interpretation of that verse like this. There is a cinema theater and one new picture was shown recently, after which an old picture was also shown now. In the first new picture, the hero acted as son and a old heroine acted as his mother. In the second old picture, the same hero acted as husband and the same heroine acted as wife. This is because the hero actor acts as hero for a long time, whereas the heroine actress becomes old shortly and acts in elder roles. If you see both these from the point of actor and actress only, neither both are husband and wife nor are both mother and son. The actor and actress are real and always remain as colleagues only in reality. The roles in cinema were totally unreal, and hence both these role relationships are unreal only. Similarly, these worldly bonds are only unreal cinema role bonds. In reality, any two actors, souls, are only colleagues in the profession. These unreal worldly relationships change from one birth in brackets cinema to other. In any way, it is doesn't matter since these role relationships are totally unreal. That is, worldly bonds are totally unreal. One should not say that the relationship between roles is real, at least in the time of present shooting, even though both actors were not having and will not have this role relationship in the past and future respectively. Such temporary relationship is unreal in all the three times as said by Shankara, that whatever is temporary must be unreal in all the times. Ida nityam tat krutakam hi loke. This is correct because even during the shooting time, both were neither husband and wife nor mother and son in reality. Hence, whatever is temporary must be always unreal only. Ashtavakra is advising King Janaka not to fall in the clutch of such totally unreal worldly bonds which are just role relationships of cinemas. The Veda also says that even the love shown by such unreal worldly bonds is also unreal because these worldly bonds love you only for their happiness and not for your happiness since you are giving them happiness. Atmanaha. The only real bond for both the acting colleagues is the bond with producer of cinemas who patronizes them, and that employer-employee bond alone is real and unchanged even if the cinemas changing their roles. Similarly, the bond between God, producer of world, and acting soul, which is master servant, is always permanent and real even though lives change, changing the role like worldly relationships. The sage is finally concluding to warn the king to take care of the real and permanent bond with God to keep it above the unreal and temporary worldly bonds. The scholar was almost shocked and got astonished to hear such excellent meaning of the verse, which was thought as worst by him. He touched the feet of Swami and embraced Swami, shedding tears, saying, "You are really, really Datta." And from that time onwards, God fully recovered. Swami told the devotees, knowledge or goddess Saraswati is also a miraculous power. Hence, this should be also considered as a miracle only, like other miracles performed by Datta. Swami asked us to keep the name of that old scholar confidential since the scholar is very famous preacher of scriptures and this may distort his fame in the society. Swami told finally, all of you know that I don't want any fame since this revelation of the meaning of this verse is done by Lord Dattatreya only through my voice. Then Swami gave one more comment. This soul was a great scholar with ego, mocking at every scholar in the past birth, and the present sickness was due to that past sin. So that's the end of this miracle performed by Swami. Then the second one for today's satsang, the title is Giving Voice to Devotee Who Became Dumb. Shri Anjaneya Sharma ji and his wife Srimati Kameshwaramma visited Swami. Shri Sharma ji was a famous singer. He was attacked by paralysis and lost voice. Both fell on the feet of Swami. Swami told, I am giving you voice now to sing some devotional songs in my presence. Sharmaji started singing songs of Tyagaraja in wonderful tone, and Swami also sang the same along with Sharmaji. Sharmaji told that he got a divine experience of Sage Narada singing along with Tyagaraja while Sage Narada presented Swaranava to him. Swami told, the loss of your voice is due to wounding the throat of pigeon residing in the temple of Krishna. You have already crossed 60 years age. Now voice is not very much essential for you. If you insist, I shall certainly grant the voice. But you have to become dumb throughout your next life since the interest is added to the punishment for delaying it. Sharmaji thought a while and agreed to lose the voice in this remaining short period of life. It happened so as per the agreement. Swami's comment about this miracle. The punishment of the sin is inevitable unless the soul is totally transformed. God has the power to postpone the punishment to the next birth, and addition of interest is also inevitable. God will never hurt the deity of injustice in her administration. Some adjustments may be done by God in view of the possibility of spiritual reformation in a soul, but account is always maintained. Postponement is not cancellation of punishment of sin. People mistake God thinking that God cancelled their sins caught by their clutch of theoretical devotion of prayers and shedding crocodile tears. God is omniscient and can never be fooled by any soul. Cancellation of a particular sin can take place provided God is prepared to suffer it based on the deservingness of devotee. The cancellation, all the sins can be only accomplished when the soul is totally transformed by knowledge, theoretical devotion, and practical sacrifice. Swami's remarks. The ethical scripture says that the sin done in the past birth appears as disease in this birth, and one must go for the medical treatment immediately to know whether the illness came by the carelessness to obey the divine laws of nature or by the punishment of past sin. पूर्वजन्म कृतं पापं व्याधिरूपेण बाधते तत्शान्ति रौषधैः. If you drench in rain, you will catch cold, which can be cured by medicine. Medicines and medical science are created by God only. Prithivya Oshadayah from Veda. Vijnanametah Vetat Sarvam from Vyasa's scriptures. Foolish devotees feel that taking medical treatment is undivine. The results of natural deeds like catching cold by drenching in rain are also due to your negligence of natural laws created by God only. The quality of cold is given to rain by God only. Even after long medical treatment, if the disease is not cured, you should then only treat it as the punishment of past sin. In miracles, God cures such incurable diseases due to His grace on you. Otherwise, the punishment ends by its full enjoyment. This world is called as place of actions, karma loka, since the fruits of deeds are enjoyed in the upper world only, bhogaloka like heaven and hell. When the soul returns back to this world from the upper world, it enjoys the fruits of all deeds to a major extent. Enjoyment of fruits like punishment cannot reform the soul completely except that the intensities of sins are reduced. The soul coming down contains all sins in the form of traces due to enjoyment of fruits to large extent. This means that the soul contains the qualitative pattern of all deeds, though their quantitative intensities is reduced in this birth. Hence, God being the chief doctor to treat the patient's soul can use any sin from the above pattern of karma chakra of a soul for its reformation either here or there. The Gita says that though the soul is eternal from the point of its basic inert energy, soul in the form of awareness dies in the night deep sleep and is born in the morning awaken, and this is an alternative expression of the theory which was not condemned by the Lord. Hence, the sin from past birth means even the sin done yesterday. Intensive deeds, atyutkata karma, give immediate results in this birth itself. The diseases cured by me were due to various sins like giving suffering to innocent or good people, looting the money of innocent public through corrupt practices out of greedy or lobha. Gita says that violence, corruption of money and illegal sex are the three main gates to hell. So that's the end of the miracle as well as the end of the Vishnu Lahari section of this Mahima Yamuna. Thank you.
Next.
ज्ञानं
Yeah.
मेह विभूतिर्वा यत्किञ्चित् दर्शितं मया सर्वं दत्तगुरोरेवं चापल्यं मम ध्रुवम्.
Next, Bhakti Ganga.
Yes, Swamiji.
Padamsham Swamiji.
Okay.
गुरूणां गुरोर्दत्तदेवस्य साक्षात् महाज्ञानवारासिरूपस्य रम्ये गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् त्रिमूर्तिस्वरूपस्य दत्ताह्वयस्य त्रिलोकादिमध्यान्तिमस्थानहेतुः गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् निवृत्ति प्रवृत्ति प्रबोध प्रमाण प्रकाशार्थ संधान दत्तद्विजस्य गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् समुद्धर्तुमस्मान् समेतस्य भूयो नराकारमाश्रित्य दत्तस्य भूमौ गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् त्रिदेवात्मनो दत्तनाम्नो महर्षे श्रुतिस्मार्थविज्ञानसिद्धान्तकर्तुः गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् पवित्रानसूयात्रिपुत्रस्य रक्षा श्रितस्याभितो धेनुधर्मश्ववेदैः गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् महाब्रह्मतेजोभिरत्युज्ज्वलस्य सुकाशाय चेलस्य दत्तोत्तमस्य गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् सुवेदान्तवर्षान्त दत्ताम्बुदस्य क्वचित् विद्युदाघात सिद्धान्तभासः गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे मनश्चेन्न लग्नं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य काशिकापुरी क्षेत्रलोकपालनं पिङ्गलेक्षणः स्फुरणमात्रमेव ते भुवनभाण्डक प्रलयभस्मकारको गर्जनोद्धत ध्वनिकणस्तव प्रभो भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य अष्टसिद्धयोऽप्यष्टभूतिभिः सह भूतनाथ ते करुणलेशसम्भवाः सारमेयवत् त्वयि समर्पितार्थिनां बोधयत्यहो शुनकवाहनं तव भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य अरुणवाससं भैक्ष्यभस्त्रिकाभुजं साग्निपात्रकं पृथुलमार्जनीधरम् श्मश्रुभीकरं कालदण्डमण्डितं कालिकापतिं कालकालमाश्रये भैरवायते कालभैरवायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य भैरवायते काल शङ्करायते प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य प्रदक्षिणानि मे देवमूढभक्तस्य
Very good.
Swamiji, there's still a few minutes left. Can I play one more?
शङ्करायते लोकशङ्करायते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य शङ्करायते लोकशङ्करायते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य हाललोचनं तव हि मे सुदर्शनम् शूलमेव ते तिलकमूर्ध्वपुण्ड्रकम् नीलकण्ठते भाति कण्ठनीलिमा विस्तरान्महो मम हि देहनीलिमा शङ्करायते लोकशङ्करायते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य हालचक्षुषा दग्धपद्मसायकम् सादराक्षिणा दृष्टपद्मसम्भवम् प्रेमवीक्षणा लोलपद्मलोचनम् त्वां त्रिलोचनम् देव संस्मराम्यहम् शङ्करायते लोकशङ्करायते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य नटनपण्डित स्फुरति रम्यताण्डवम् चित्रमण्डलम् भ्रमणलोलकुण्डलम् पुरगमण्डना स्खलितधर्मदण्डनम् दनुजखण्डनम् विजितभारतीभण्डनम् शङ्करायते लोकशङ्करायते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य ब्रह्म विष्णु शिवाख्यानां मूर्तिनामूलहेतवे त्रिमूर्तिमुखपद्माय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः अरुणश्यामधावल्य वर्णमिश्रमवर्णिते अनसूयैकभाग्याय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः शङ्खं चक्रं त्रिशूलं च डक्कामपि कमण्डलुं बिभ्रते क्षस्रजं हस्तैः दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः कुर्वते भावमात्रेण सृष्टिस्थितिलयानपि सर्वदेवस्वरूपाय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः गुरूणां गुरुराजाय श्रुतीनां श्रुतयेऽपि च शास्त्राणामपि शास्त्राय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः बालो प्रतीक्षाय सर्वलीला विहारिणे अवधूतैकलक्षाय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः। करुणावाहिनी मूला वात्सल्यार्णवचक्षुषे आह्वानादेव दृष्टाय दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः। श्रितानुद्धर्तु कामाय कलौ सर्वगताय च साध्यानि ददति दत्तात्रेयाय ते नमः। श्रीदत्तात्रेयदेवस्य पुण्यं कृष्णकृताष्टकं पठतां स्यादिहामुत्र फलमीप्सितं क्षयम्।
Swamiji, would you like me to play anything else, Swamiji?
As you like. Anything.
Oh, okay, Swamiji, I'll play Vande Dattatreya. Vandeti Ramyam, sorry.
वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। वेदान्तसारं नानावतारं भक्तोपकारं भजदत्तम्। भक्तोपकारं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। संसारपारं रुद्राक्षहारं निहारगौरं भजदत्तं। निहारगौरं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। काषाय चीलं पत्राक्षमालम् आम्नाय मूलं भजदत्तम्। आम्नाय मूलं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। ज्वालाक्षिफालं दत्तात्रिशूलं कण्ठाय नीलं भजदत्तं। कण्ठाय नीलं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। पादान्तशक्त्रं विच्छिन्ननखं श्रीशङ्खचक्रं भजदत्तं। श्रीशङ्खचक्रं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। कन्दर्परूपं सौन्दर्यदीपं योगीन्द्रभूपं भजदत्तं। योगीन्द्रभूपं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। मन्त्राब्जबीजं तन्त्रार्थभाजं श्रीयन्त्रराजं भजदत्तं। श्रीयन्त्रराजं भजदत्तं। वन्देति रम्यं विश्वैकगम्यम् उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्। उन्मत्तदत्तं गुरुदेवम्।
Yes, Swamiji, shall we close now? परब्रह्म समारंभां श्रीदत्तात्रेय मध्यमां श्रीदत्तस्वामी पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् सर्वविश्वन्यस्तपादपद्मायते वामहस्तालोलवेदशास्त्रायते ज्ञानसूर्यायते दत्तरूपायते श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् पादनमस्कारं स्वामीजी।
పాదనమస్కారం స్వామిజీ.
పాదనమస్కారం స్వామీజీ.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామీజీ.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామీజీ.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామి.
నమస్కారం స్వామి. నమస్కారం స్వామి.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామి.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామి.
సాష్టాంగ ప్రణామాలు స్వామి.
గురుదత్త శ్రీదత్త ప్రభు.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామి.
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామి. But I think that came out and went.